Um, Hello, I'm John Lee here with Jim Heisserer today. Real happy to have you. And I just got a few questions for you. First of all, I know who you are, but if you'd like to tell our audience here, who are you
Sure.
and what type of real estate investor are you, Jim?
Okay. Well, again, my name is Jim Heisserer. My wife and I have been investing in real estate since about 1984, I guess it is, or 85. I'm starting to lose track. And we invest mainly in single family homes. We've only had, actually, I don't think we've ever had any multiples. We've had some condominiums that are in a multi-use group complex, so to speak. But everything for the most part is single family homes that we've bought and flipped, and some we've retained, some we've sold, some we've flipped, you name it. We've done it with the real estate, and they're all in decent neighborhoods. We started out in St. Louis City proper, and ultimately now we are heavily invested in the South County area of St. Louis, and it's been a long journey that we've decided we were going to do early in our careers. I was electrical engineer and designer, working at a consulting engineering firm, and my wife was working for a doctor's office, and she started there full time. But then when we started having kids in the 80s, she went to part time. She was job sharing, which nobody knew about job sharing back then, with another nurse. And I was working at the engineering company. And one of the main reasons why we never did go completely full time, I should say, in real estate was because of the insurance issue. A lot of investors, they may have their wives working full time or vice versa, and you can get insurance through your spouse. But my wife was working part time, so I had to work full time, and I never wanted to really make that jump to full time. Our game plan was buy 1 or 2 houses a year and be able to maintain my regular job. And I was getting a decent salary, not fantastic. And that way I could have health insurance for my wife and 2 kids, myself. And back in the 80s and 90s, and even up to now, I guess you have Obamacare to some extent, but it was really an issue for a lot of people. And so that was so important to me. My oldest one had asthma really bad. It was in the hospital quite a bit in its younger years. So we needed to have good insurance. And I just didn't feel safe going out and completely doing it. So we did it in a systematic way, looking at the long range plan of buying homes and keeping some, and getting loans on them, but ultimately pay them off. And that's where we are today. And we're in really financially sound condition right now as a result of that.
That's such a great point, Jim. The insurance is such a factor for many of us. I know,
Yes.
My wife and I, that's always been a consideration for us too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of people don't think about that. People want to quit their jobs and all this kind of stuff. But what I see is a lot of people like yourself that have a really good plan of maintaining your life with what needs to be done with a family and everything you've taken care of. So that's so important for people to know that. I guess I'd like to just know, and I know people would like to know, how did you get involved with real estate investing and why, Jim?
Well, we had a block. We moved into our present house here in 1982, I guess it was, and we had a block party out in our front yard, and I was talking to a fellow named Art across the street, and he was standing there. And I said, Art, what do you do for a living? He goes, well, I don't work. I said, well, what do you mean you don't work? He goes, well, I have rental property. And bingo, I started talking to him. And the next thing I know, the wheels are starting to turn. I'm thinking, I know I could just work every year at my company, and I know exactly what my boss is going to give me for a raise, because he put it on a little piece of paper every Christmas time. I walk in there and he'd hand it to me, and it'd be a 5 or 6% or whatever, as long as the years were good. And I could project what I was going to make 25 years later, and I thought, well, there's got to be something else. So Art got me going. And the next thing we know, we joined the St. Louis Real Estate Investors Association, and got got involved on the board and met a lot of very seasoned professionals, and they guided us along the way and helped us out. And that's how we got started.
Very nice. That's a great story, Jim. I'd never heard that, but yeah, it's amazing when you just when you're at a party or just in a social situation with the stuff you can find out just by being a little, just by talking and networking a little bit. And I know the association helps so much. I know it has for me also. And I know you're the past president, which is just such invaluable as far as the knowledge you gain and the people and the networking that you've people you've talked to along the way. What do you think your best real estate deal you ever did was, Jim?
Well, can I tell you about the one bad one? I won't say bad.
I'll ask you about the bad one too. We can, I just want to know.
I almost got to do the bad one first.
Okay, let's do that.
Okay. And this is the only one, we've only lost money on one real estate deal in our whole existence in 40 years. Only one. And I'll be honest with you, we probably lost $40,000 on it. And we bought a house in a good neighborhood here in South County area. And rule of thumb is you make your money when you buy. Well, I overpaid for it. I fixed it up like I do all of them, of course. And we went to sell it. We thought, well, we could get X amount of dollars. Well, we came to find out that that particular property had a garage in the basement of the property, and it had a very low ceiling because when that house was built in the 50s, it was all station wagons. It wasn't SUVs. And when we were selling that property, SUVs were really at their prime, they're starting, and everybody had an SUV at that economic level of buying a property. You couldn't get it in the garage. You couldn't get through it hit the ceiling. That's how low it was. And then the garage down in the basement was located on the opposite side of the kitchen. So now you had to park your car in the garage and carry your groceries all the way over to the other side, up steps to get to your kitchen. We never thought about that. We thought we just knew everything. And that alone detracted from a lot of sales because this house was not a first-time buyer. This was a second-time buyer. And you're smart when you're buying your second home compared to your first. And therefore, we had to drop our price. We finally sold it, but it was $40,000 under what we had in it. I don't think it was 2 months later, up the street, a neighbor said, hey, the one lady passed away, and I know the people that are going to sell the house, the heirs. Went up and met them, and they just wanted to get rid of it. They were don't wanters. And right away, when I bought that house, I made at least $40,000 in equity back right away. Wow. So that was my bad deal, and that was our good deal. And we've got other ones, but all of them, the rest of them are all profit levels, that were profitable. But those two, and we would never thought about that when we were rehabbing the house, those two issues. But, second-time home buyers are smarter than the first-time home buyers. And those kind of things people were looking at, and we didn't realize it.
Well, it also sounds like second-time investors in that neighborhood are smarter too. That's just a great story, Jim, because you've got the best and the worst in the same play. Well, maybe it's not the worst, but I don't look at things as really being bad necessarily. I think you're kind of the same way on some of that. It's just you learn from it. You learn. 40,000. I mean, that's a chunk of money, but then again, you made it back because of your knowledge you gained on what it was. So that's right. That's invaluable right there. That tip right there can help a lot of people. Yeah, that's something I wouldn't necessarily have thought of starting out either, or even once you have a few deals under your belt, because until you carry the groceries or look at it from their point of view, and the first and second home buyers, house buyers, that's huge right there.
Yeah, right there. You got a family and you're carrying four or 8 bags of groceries all the way over to the other side of the house, up the steps to the kitchen, when there's a house right across the street that you can just drive right next to it, drive in your garage, open the door, and you're right in the kitchen, so to speak. So,
and some of those really are hard to convert too with their garages. I've seen a lot of that in a few neighborhoods, and you really can't do much other than just get rid of your garage.
You couldn't even put a garage door opener in it because it would be too low for most cars. That's just, and these were nice homes too.
Yeah.
But it is what it is. So, you live and learn, and that, we look very closely at all the properties we buy to see how functional they are, within reason. I've gone into a lot of properties, and I'll say, well, we'll take this wall out here, or we'll close this opening in and we can get another bedroom out of it. That's been a number of them where I made two bedroom houses into three without sacrificing too much space, because that third bulk area may have just been an offset room that was, I don't know, so old sewing room or something small, but it made it into a third bedroom, which increased the value of the property. I used to do that all the time. And, I draw the plans up, of course, that's what I was doing at work. And I could just, sit there at home at night and think about, well, what if I do this or that, and add this wall or take this wall out? And it just changes the whole complexity of the layout and flow of the house, and ultimately improve the money value of the property.
Yeah, the value added, what you're talking about right there, a lot of people overlook that. And I know it's taken me many years to when I first started to do that too, because I couldn't see the value. And that's what you can do right there. If you make the home, like you're talking about, a 2 to 3 bedroom, that it just increases your market tremendously and the value of the home. That's such a great point. Thank you, Jim. If you were, and I just curious, because a lot of people, are starting out, and of course, there's a lot of seasoned investors that need to know stuff anyway, and they can learn a lot. I know we're constant learners. And what would you say you would do differently today if you were to start over?
Well, I was talking to my wife last night about that, and I asked her, I said, what would you do different? And I was really surprised. She said, I don't think I'd do anything different. And I thought, really? And I probably would spend a little bit more time on maintaining our house, because that's probably the one area I get in trouble with, that, and right now I'm paying the price. I'm spending money on my property, our house, and fixing it up. And she says it's long overdue. So I probably should have spent a little bit more time on that. There's times I've been away from my kids, like on a weekend, swinging a hammer or whatever. I did a lot of sweat equity on the weekends and that. Sometimes during the weeknights, when she was watching the kids. And, I feel somewhat, I do feel guilty about it, but they grew up. They're great kids now. They're adults, and they both got rental property now. So, but, I think the thing is making sure you balance your economic desires, what you want to achieve, and weigh that against what cost that is going to be on your family. If you got a family life, wife and kids or whatever, there's a balance there. Don't overdo it. Don't go out and buy 5 properties at once and kill yourself, because it may end your marriage too. So there's a balance there. And our approach was do it gradually. Like I said, one house. Sometimes we bought 2 in a year. Sometimes then we want to buy one, for a whole year. But having a balance there, so you spend time with your kids and your wife, to keep that together.
I think that's tough for a lot of us, because we do make sacrifices. But then again, I also see people that didn't do, like the sacrifice you made was working on the property to improve your family's lives. A lot of people are sitting around watching broke flicks or whatever they're watching on TV, and then the kids aren't paying attention anyway. So I mean,
I can tell you, there was many a time that I wanted to watch football on Sunday afternoon when St. Louis had a football team, and I was swinging a hammer or doing something on a property, and then I'd get up and work, 40, 50 hours a week during the week. But, I was able to do that in my 30s and my 40s and even my 50s. And at my age now, I'm retired, and I don't have to beat my brains out so much, now. It's a little bit different, but it's a balancing act, and you got to know when to take a vacation. My wife would always insist that, hey, we're going to take a vacation, and I didn't want to do it sometimes, but once I got into it, the vacation, I was fine. It took me a couple of days to wind down, and then I was fine. But it's very important to do all that.
Yeah, balance. You just hit the nail on the head with that too. I think balance is the key for a lot of us, because it's so easy to get burned out on stuff. A lot of us go full force into stuff, and then we get tired of it. And actually, that's a lot of the ways and I know you have too, found some of the non-wanters out there, because they're just tired of working on the properties. They just give it up. They didn't have that balance. So
yeah, and it's really important to all the stuff other than real estate, have that balance in there, because you can get so jacked up and excited about, making a buck on this real estate that, you put things secondary, and you just got to be careful, when you're going through that. And if you got a long range plan, you can make it work. One of our mentors, John Schaub, he's out of Florida, said, just buy, making it big on little deals. In fact, I was going to mention this one book by him. It's called Building Wealth One House at a Time by John Schaub. And he's a great mentor, a great speaker, and he's been doing it for years. And it's not a get rich quick plan, but it is a plan for your life as to how to build up on real estate and get a portfolio and then be able to retire. My wife and I now, we're retired. I still work on my rental properties because I want to, and I've got the time to do it. I don't do everything now. I farm stuff out as needed too. But that's where, we did our plan, and based on what his approach was, a little at a time. And now it's paying off.
That's such a great point, and I think you did everything. I think you should listen to your wife, because I don't think you should have done anything differently, because your family you took care of, but you had your plan, you worked it out, and I agree with you. One project at a time. People do try to bite off too much, and you obviously have done it right, because your children have some rental properties too. So I mean, some of this is at least rubbed off and made their lives better too.
Yeah.
And then now I know you might be similar to me, that because of what I've done and the sacrifices I made, I can spend more time with our family now and our grandchildren. We have a 5-year-old grandson, and I couldn't spend time with him if I had to still do some of the stuff before. So, and
I'm in the same boat like you. We got a 5-year-old grandson and a going on 3 granddaughter, and we're with them every week, at least one day, if not more. And it's just nice to know, hey, I can get up today and just stay with them all day if I want to, or I could go work on a property, or I could hire it out. It doesn't matter. I've got that freedom to do what I want. My biggest problem is, being an engineer, I want to fix everything myself. I hate spending money and paying somebody else for something I can do. So I still struggle with that, but I don't think that's the end of the world.
That's not, if that's the worst problem you have, that's a great problem, Jim. That's great. Well, thank you. This is so informative. If someone did want to get a hold of you, wanted to know more, is there a way you would like people to contact you?
I would say first, I'll give them my email address. Okay. It's Jim Heiss. So it's JIMHEISS 13, just number 13.
Okay.
At gmail.com. And you can just, they can email me and we can go from there. But, I'll be happy to talk to some people about where they're at, and, give them some of our years of experience. And, you can learn so much in a book, but talking to people, and I'm sure you said it before, but joining a real estate investment club, wherever you're at, whether it's a for-profit or not for profit, but join a real estate group, get involved with it. If you really want to learn a lot, get on the board, because that's very often where, when you're on the board, you get to get speakers to come in, you get to know some of the politicians, the local bureaucrats, and that can make a big difference when you have an issue on a house with a permit or something like that. If you know that person ultimately who's in charge, you can go to them and just, try to reason with them your side. That doesn't mean you're going to win all the time, but at least you can at least make contact with them, and having seen your face before, and hopefully they respect your opinions. That can sometimes make a difference in how they approach a problem that you might have on a property, because sometimes there's just issues that come up, and maybe the local inspector is just very difficult to work with. I just had that issue with one of my relatives on a piece of property, and the local inspector was just not being very cooperative. And, the main guy, inspector, came out and looked at it. He said, "Oh, this is fine. There's no problem with it." So being on the board ultimately gives you a lot more access to people that you sometimes really need to talk to. And you learn so much when you're on the board, because you right away can call somebody else and ask a question that, you may not have the problem solved.
That's such a great point, and that nugget right there, Jim, could change people's life, because you can, and we've a lot of us have done it. We've taken courses from national speakers, and they're all good. But when you break it down and you want to kind of do micro investing, is what I kind of call it, because of your area, you can only find some of the details, just like what you talked about with the inspectors and stuff, by being involved with local people. And your local REIA group, your Real Estate Investment Association, that's just so invaluable. I know a lot of us, when we've been around for a while, we think, oh, I don't need to show up and do, and maybe network as much anymore. But, to me, I think that can make all the difference, because one little thing, just like that, you can find out, because somebody else has probably already been through it, or they'll have the connections. It's not always, who it's who knows you. And, you can actually get a lot of information. It could save you, well, not only money, but time, running back and forth. And I see people investing from other areas, even in our area, and they don't have the local connections. And that's,
I agree with you, John. I think the biggest problem, and maybe I'm an old guy, so I can say this, maybe it's the younger generation, but it's sometimes they're afraid to talk to people. I mean, they want to get on the phone and text them or whatever, or email them. But sometimes a phone call, that personal touch can make the difference, because it's just more human interaction. But that's one thing I always thought I was able to do quite well, was talk to people when there are issues, try to work them out. I mean, my job at work became much easier once I was involved with the real estate. And I learned how to talk to people more and communicate, negotiate, and have people maybe see your way as to why, you want to approach something in this manner. And it carried out into my engineering field, as well as, the real estate endeavors.
Yeah, I could definitely see that, because I think relationships are so important. And I know they've same kind of thing with me, by dealing with people that I had to deal with. Okay. It seems in many cases that's helped me in other things, because that just helped and I don't really want to say skills, because it's always a learning process, but that helps tremendously in your relationships on dealing with other people in every aspect of your life. For me, even with my family, it's helped me deal with it, because some of the difficult things I guess I thought was a little bit easier, once I started doing it. And it's a matter of getting out there and dealing with people. So
I mean, real estate is there, it's bricks and mortars to some extent, but as they all say, it is people. If you can deal with people, you're going to go so much farther than a person who can't deal with people, because you can, and sometimes whether a situation goes north or south, you're right on the fence. And depending on what you say at that moment, or how you react to what somebody else is saying, can make all the difference in the world. So you got to know your personality and understand, yourself, and realize that, that at that moment, you might get the deal, or you might not get the deal, or you might get the job interview, or you might not get the job interview, or you might be able to convince that inspector of your approach, or you might not. Sometimes it's right on the fence. And that's how your personality and how you come across, how you communicate, sometimes it makes all the difference in the world. That's the other part of real estate they can't teach you in a book. It's you, and you got to realize what you're like, especially if you're an introverted person, and it does make it more of a challenge for you. But on the other hand, if you're a bull, shooting the bull all the time, people are going to see through that too. So you got to be sincere and honest, and usually it works out for the better.
Yeah, that's a great point right there too. Being sincere and honest, and having good intentions, which I know you do. Yeah. We all make mistakes, obviously, but if you have the right intentions going into that, you can usually weather pretty much any storm.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
So that's well, thank you very much, Jim. I appreciate all your valuable information. You're a master investor. I mean, you're way up there in my book, and I've learned so much from you, and I appreciate you very much. And I know our listeners and our audience here, and the members of our group will really appreciate your thoughts and all your wisdom here. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. Thanks again.
All right, John. Thank you.